Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Big Blue Drew 97 here, coming at you with another manga review for My Hero Academia. Manga chapter 284, titled, I don't know. I am reading the scanlation for this review today, and unfortunately they do not have the title of this chapter, but if I had to take a guess on what the chapter title is, it's probably going to have something pertaining to Bakugo. Now, why am I saying this? We're going to have to watch this video to find out, and when it comes to the reason why I'm doing it today and not a little bit later is because the official translations come out tomorrow, and I really want to get this review out right now. So it would be very helpful if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Big Blue Drew 97, as well as leave a like and a comment on what you think of this video and what you think is going to go on in this chapter. And without the way, let's get started. So we start this chapter with a different perspective from what we saw last chapter between Deku and Shigaraki, where we saw Deku finally use float and take Shigaraki and everyone up into the air. We get a different perspective of that and how powerful Deku is with float, because we see that he kicked himself off the ground, and we see that the force of his kick, or most likely him pushing himself in the air with float, was able to take some debris up with him, which shows how much force that he's able to exert just by being able to use float, as well as how he confirms that he took Shigaraki off the ground so that they can have a mid-air battle to prevent any more destruction. But unfortunately, he doesn't have full control over Black Whip, so he drops everyone to the ground except Shigaraki, who is still in the air. So he just throws everyone to the ground to make sure that they're safe while he is still fighting Shigaraki in the air. And then from here, you have Endeavor, who's like, Shoto, take care of the injured, as he thinks that his head is like, man, I'm pathetic. I should be the one up there right now as the #1 hero. As well as, probably the most interesting part of this page is how you have Bakugo, who's screaming at Deku, what are you doing? Hold on. And it's like, what are you doing? You should be the one farthest away from the guy, and Erasure is gone. Because Shigaraki is after One For All, which is inside of Deku, and because Erasure is no longer active, Shigaraki can theoretically steal it from Deku. But Deku has a fair point of like, who's gonna keep everyone else safe then? And who's the only one that can keep Shigaraki in the air? I'm the only option. That is what Deku says, and you know what? It makes sense. He's the one who brought Shigaraki up to the air. Really, no one else has the ability to keep him there. And you know what's great about this next page is that Shigaraki is like, oh, well, yeah, they're right. Even though we're in the sky, I'm still gonna take one for all from you and send you straight to heaven, since you like to be in the sky so much. But hey, if you're up here, guess what? You won't be alone, because I'm going to send them old geezers down there up with you, too. So he's like, yo, I'm going to steal your... Shigaraki's like, I'm going to steal your quirk. I'm going to kill you since you want to go to heaven so much. Then I'm going to give you the courtesy and kill everyone else so that y'all can all go to heaven. Shigaraki is fucking dark as shit, and I love it. But even Deku is like, well, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to let you hurt anyone else, as he begins to fight Shigaraki in the air. And Bakugo is looking upon this with his eyes being bloodshot. But here's the thing, it's not with anger, it's with concern. Because from here, we get a sort of beginning to proceed into a flashback, where we have someone saying that, oh, you want to take part in our training? Which I think this may be a mistranslation. I think what it is trying to say is not a question, but a statement. And it's like, we want you to take part in the training, as we see who this individual is talking to. Where we see Zero, Uraraka, and Froppy, who basically in unison is like, so what do you want us to do? And most likely who's asking for their help is Deku and All Might. And so we get this beginning of the flashback where Deku's like, oh yeah, I'm developing this new power and I need help to kind of do it. But before he's able to explain to him exactly what happens, we see Deku with a throw, And Araka's like, okay, before we get into this, Deku, what happened to your hair? You got an afro right now. How'd you do that? And then we have Deku, who's just like, oh, well, while I was training with Bakugo or Kachan, we were, it was type of training for Black Whip, where I'm trying to capture Kachan with Black Whip, and Kachan would just have to hit me once, and he wins that way. And it's like, okay, alright, Araka is a little bit concerned. He's like, so explosions were not out of like the question. And I think here's where Bakugo begins to chime in and it's like, well, he wanted to be like a real like one-on-one fight, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah, we get the confirmation of what this time period is. This is most likely the period after the Endeavor training joint, when they were training under Endeavor, and before they set their sights on the League of Variants of Paranormal Liberation Front. This happened within the 3 or 4 months, where you have Uraraka, Sero, and Froppy who are beginning to help Deku begin to like master his new quirk, Black Whip, and also indirectly like giving him kind of like preparing him on how to use float, especially with like Uraraka, who has gravity powers, which allows for Deku to float. So he wants to improve his mid-air fighting, but something that they ask is like, oh, well, if you need someone to like help with like the binding and learning how to like use Black Whip effectively, why not have Aizawa do it? And we have All Might who chimes in and like, oh, well, he's dealing with some pressing matters, where we cut over to Kurogiri. So this confirms that when Aizawa and Person Might went to go see Kurogiri, Deku, Bakugo, Sero, Uraraka, and Froppy were all training and helping Deku begin to master his quirk. And so this flashback, I'm just gonna like do more summarization, not go through all of it, but this is a very cool flashback, mainly because we get to see Deku begin to like fight in midair with Uraraka's help, which will be able to explain how when he was able to activate float when he's fighting Shigaraki, how he's most likely able to move in the air more fluidly because he was preparing for this. But the other thing that is very interesting about this flashback is that it flushes out Bakugo more as a character than we've seen throughout this entire arc. Because while Bakugo is training with Uraraka, you have Bakugo and All Might sitting on the bench commenting about how zero gravity is very similar to float, and how this is going to be very helpful for Deku when he learns how to activate float. And we get this cool conversation between Bakugo and All Might, where Bakugo comes to a realization, or he tells All Might that, yeah, this isn't going to last forever. Like, they're eventually going to know what his quirk is. They're going to eventually know the connection between you and him. This is something that they're going to eventually find out. And All Might chimes in and is like, yeah, I know, it's something that's going to eventually happen, but we have to make sure that he's able to grow and like learn these quirks and be able to grow as a hero. And we also have Bakugo who's like, yeah, that's alright. And something else that's interesting about this conversation is that All Might also brings up the fact that, we have to make sure that this thing is going to stay secret. And the reason why we kept it a secret is, villains would want this quirk, want this ability, but then so would heroes. He says, like, villains aren't exclusive to wanting one for all, which makes sense because you have a hero like Endeavor who literally bred a child to be more powerful. And if he thought like, hey, if I can get my hands on the quirk that All Might had, then I could have been number one. So it's cool to get that understanding of like why keeping the secret is so important. Like why it's like, oh, why you could tell it to the heroes because the heroes are the good guys. Well, also heroes can be selfish, and maybe a hero would want to take the quirk so that they can be the number one hero. But something else that's even more like pressing is something pertaining to the users of One for All, because we at least know like a few of the users by like what they look like, and we don't know their quirks, but Deku and Bakugo do know their quirks. But then there's someone else that has their name scratched out, because then we get a flashback of when All Might was showing Deku and Bakugo the journal and the users of One for All, and like what their quirks are, but one of them was scratched out. And Bakugo comes to a conclusion of like, why is this one scratched out? Does it have to do with like the origins or like the true nature? And All Might just chimes in and is like, no! Well, we don't really know, but no. So potentially one of the quirks that Deku has or will have when it comes to All for One, or One for All, gosh, it's so confusing, One for All, could reveal the true nature of not just his quirk, but also Shigi's quirk of All for One. And this is something that Bakugo comes to realization. But another realization that he comes to is the reasoning why he hated Deku so much. He says that Deku was special because of his upbringing and how like that was something that he could never understand, and that it used to annoy the hell out of him, and he always wanted to keep his distance from him. The reason why he bullied him was because he just didn't understand like how he was able to do that, while also like putting away his weaknesses and like what he hated about himself. There were things that he hated about himself that he didn't see in Deku, and he tried to distance himself from them, which caused him to bully him. And something interesting that All Might brings up is that, yeah, and you're participating in this training as a form of atonement, right? And Bakugo doesn't refute it at all. So this just shows that Bakugo is growing. He is developing. He has gone through character growth. He has gone through character development. He is not the same character that he was at the beginning of the story. Yes, he still is hot-headed. He still gets angry from time to time, but he's understanding. He has more empathy and understanding for everyone in his class, and he even has like a budding relationship with Deku, as not necessarily being like a bully to him, but atoning for what he did to him. Because we see Deku who's like just so engrossed in trying to learn this quirk, and then we have Endeavor who comments on Bakugo about how he's very similar to Endeavor, and how even when it comes to All Might himself, he didn't like have the foresight to see this until it was too late. He didn't have the same type of foresight that Bakugo and Deku has, which shows that All Might himself is not perfect. He is seen as this pillar of like what it means to be a hero, but he's just as imperfect as every other hero out here. And even when it comes to the comparisons between Bakugo and Endeavor, I think it goes deeper, not the old Endeavor that we know, but the new Endeavor who recognizes his faults, is trying to learn and atone for them in the same vein that Bakugo is also trying to atone for the fact that he bullied Deku. So that shows more comparisons between Endeavor and Bakugo, but this also shows that Bakugo is still kind of his own person. And we begin to end this flashback with All Might being cut off of the conversation that he's telling Bakugo. He's telling Bakugo, like, yeah, we're going to continue this conversation, but I'm in no position to say this. But as he cuts the conversation short, as we return back to the present, where we have Bakugo and Endeavor most likely trying to get to Shigaraki, and from what the translations are saying, Bakugo is telling Endeavor that he better not miss the attack, most likely trying to find a way to stop Shigaraki while making sure that Deku isn't close to him. And then we get to see Deku and Shigaraki continue their fight. We see that Deku lands a massive kick on Shigaraki, and we get the thought process of what's going on while they're fighting in this mid-air battle. Deku is thinking to himself that even though he's going at 100%, Shigaraki is still resisting the hits, but he can see that his regeneration is slowing down. He is chipping away at Shigaraki. And from what another translation is saying, I'm not sure how accurate this is, but I think what it's trying to say is that he has broken his left arm twice with 100%. And now he's just going at him with like both of his legs and his right arm. So he's thinking about how Shigaraki has inherited the power of All for One, and how One for All will be the power to topple over All for One. Oh wow, that's a tongue twister. And we get this page of Deku on the right, he's not smiling, and Shigaraki on the left, where we see he's upside down, so it shows that he looks to be smiling, but he's actually worried. He's also terrified, and the main reason why he's terrified is that Deku is channeling all of his power into this blow. He's channeling all of the power into his right arm, his right hand, and boom, attacks Shigaraki with a massive punch, talking about how he will do this whatever the consequences as the chapter ends. And let me just say this, Deku's body is going to be broken. After this fight, I would not be surprised if Hirikoshi comes out and is like, through like the dialogue or explanation of a doctor, is like, yeah, you only have like one more use in your left arm, or it's like, yeah, you can't use your left arm anymore. Or even when Deku may be on the ground, he's in the hospital, it's like, I can't feel my left arm. I can't feel my left arm. He may lose feeling in his arm completely, which, you know, possibly what could happen is maybe he has a quirk that can help fix that. But I think that after this fight, he's going to have like permanent damage to his body, particularly his left arm. And this would be expected because this is something that was foreshadowed during the original, even during like when he was in the hospital after fighting Muscular right before the Hideout Raid arc, where we saw the original All for One tying into this. I think that with this few pieces of action confirms that he may not lose an arm, but his arm is probably going to be severely damaged beyond the point of like being able to fight. Like, he may not be able to use his arm, but most likely what it's going to use, it's going to be substituted with Black Whip. I think that his left arm is going to be like more of the source of Black Whip, allowing him to swing from places to places without being able to like use that arm. Basically, Deku is going to be crippled, most likely due to the attacks that he's landed on Shigaraki, but he's going to most likely substitute that with the quirks that are stored in the One for All. So, you know, this is a very interesting chapter. Also, like I said, this chapter, what I liked most about this chapter is the character development and growth of Bakugo. How much, like, we've seen it in this arc, but this chapter just confirms more of what we thought, that he's become more friendly with Deku. He sees him more as a rival. He's atoning for the bullying that he's done. Many people argue like he's not a good person. Yeah, he's not, but at least he's trying to grow in the same vein as Endeavor. So this chapter just heavily focuses on Bakugo and how he views Deku in like a better light. Yes, he is still striving to be the number one of the greatest heroes, but that Bakugo also comes to the realization that Deku was not necessarily made for this, but that he is the embodiment of like being a hero, something that I did not have and was jealous of, but now I understand it and now I appreciate it. That is the Bakugo that we have right now. That is the Bakugo that we have in this arc. And I think what this may be alluding to is that I never really thought that Bakugo could die in this arc, that he would sacrifice himself for Deku. But after seeing this Deku, I'm not saying I'm a believer, but I am actually reading this chapter and thinking Bakugo could sacrifice his life to Deku because he realizes that, yo, you are the hero that the world needs, and if I really want to be a hero, I must allow you to live. Which can be seen by him like just struggling to try and get Deku out of danger and get him to safety away from Shigaraki. So that's something that I also really liked about this chapter. Also, the fact that this chapter just looked good and the action was great between Shigaraki and Deku, and just can't wait to see this animated. So, hopefully you enjoyed this review. Like, this is probably, including like the chapter before this and the chapter before that, and this is a top tier chapter. Really did enjoy it. Really enjoyed how the flashback flowed together, and I really did enjoy that we got to get more fleshing out of Bakugo, and even All Might as a mentor, showing that All Might isn't perfect. And also this chapter alludes to a power that Deku can awaken that could reveal the true nature of One for All, and how maybe One for All may not be as like good-natured as we thought it was. It may actually have a darker side to it, seen through one of the user's quirks, and I can't wait to see that come into fruition. A lot of setup, a lot of growth and development of characters, and just a lot of cool action in this chapter. This was a great chapter. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I enjoyed recording it. leave a like, leave a comment down below. What did you think? Subscribe to my channel, do all of that cool jazz, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye for now.